You have an app.
Hmm.
What's it called, and what happens in that app?
Yeah, so it's called N8 OFISH. Essentially, we analyze satellite data, ocean observation data, where we study various parameters in the sea surface temperatures, chlorophyll, and various other parameters. So we're essentially taking their traditional knowledge, updating that with models that is applicable to the shifting climate pattern, and giving it to them in insights that they can follow. Yesterday, I got a call from a fisherman in Karnataka, off the coast of Karwar. He used the app, he got some fish, he wanted to know some other details on the depth. Once you go into the app, your region is already set. So depending on that region, you get to see potential fishing zones, you get to see if there is an algae bloom, you get to see what's the ocean current like, what's the tidal conditions like, what the height of waves like, should I go out in the sea or not, how is the weather pattern out in the sea, if I'm looking at a potential fishing zone, how far is it? So things that really let him decide while from being at the comfort of his home whether he should really make the trip or not. But of course, there's a bunch of people who are also available for, you know, giving any operational support, providing any further cost. And then the training is also something that is kind of needs to happen regularly. We need to go and visit, understand them, because these people, I cannot tap into my customer sentiments while being in Bombay.
So when you talk about impact with OFISH, what do you, with the app, what kind of impact do you achieve with this?
So there are three things that we chase. One is the reduction of the fuel cost per trip. Typically, we try to achieve a 35% less cost of fuel per trip for any fisherman who is using the app. Second is an access market linkages, both backward and forward. This means like portable cold storages, supplying it in the last mile supply through the last mile supply chain, which essentially our team does, because half of the world does not connect to the ecosystem. So delivering those things in time, and also the fact that if they have to really reach out to the market for selling their fish, can we enable that? And the last thing, which has been a little bit of a uphill task for us, is the fact that building the credit profile. We have been able to connect fisherwomen to group finances, and that has been a challenge even for the fisherwoman profile, because essentially they are considered as a high risk sector. Connecting them to fintechs, doing the profiling, collecting the data. We have realized in the last 1.5 years that there is a big need for the additional income because of the reduced number of fishing days. Is we were looking for an alternative to it where they don't really have to come to the urban areas to really find a job, is something that we discovered in seaweed. So a new love in Numer8, and we have actually joined hands with a company called Climber Crew. So that's for last year that we are engaged in seaweed cultivation, deep into it, for Maharashtra and Gujarat, where again the same community. The fishermen can go for fishing, and the fisherwoman is helping us tie the rafts. Like if they work with us for a month, an additional income of close to 15,000 can be generated for the fisher family.
Or there are more reasons behind it?
One is seaweed as a commodity or as a crop. If you process it, there are multiple different sustainable products that you get out of them. Either it's a biofertilizer, bioplastic, biofuel, a bunch of pharmaceutical, products that you get out of it, nutraceuticals. Seaweed is there in a toothpaste for the longest time. India is importing most part of seaweed at this point in time. So seaweed has a lot of usage, and all are very organic, all are very, very bioderived, biodegradable. So seaweed as a crop is highly environment friendly. It also addresses carbon sequestration, which helps in reviving the ocean conditions. So it's a win-win-win, and very easily done in the near shore, a little far shore as well. Does not need fertilizers as input, does not need pesticides as input, grows right out of the sea. You harvest the crop and you sell it to us, and can easily can be done for for 4 hours a day. So it's been amazing so far, and we are tying that with our fisheries work. because it's essentially
For the same community.
Same community. And also our team, the marine biologists, they also have deep down knowledge of it.
This is amazing. I mean, that they are able to get all this information. So, two questions come to my mind is that, number one, that I remember you said they're very tech savvy.
Yeah.
So how come they're tech savvy and how do they use this app? I mean, we are talking about really remote villages. We are talking about people who are from very, very small communities, almost marginalized communities,
yes.
right? There's like a, paradox.
It is. And in fact, I was pretty, when I first set out for, doing this thing, I was questioned, and even I was quite suspicious of the fact that how many of them have smartphones. But when you go to villages, and me and my team has traveled from Gujarat till Andhra, coastal villages, we were happy to see that, they are the ones who are asking us whether the app has a version of iPhone. And we were like, no, sorry, we just have an Android version. So they are that way, pretty advanced. I believe, the fact that they are this remote and they had to sustain on their own, they have adapted to, learning all of it by themselves. And even the mid-sized boat, if you go, you find a Garmin device. They understand, how to really use a navigation system. A bigger boat will have satellite phones, will have some kind of AI system. It's a joy to really see them even understand what satellite data can do.
But the communities are very poor.
Not everywhere. So there are pockets of it. The fact that everything is out of pocket expense for them and they don't get their subsidies in time. As of today, as a fisherman, if I have to take a loan, the banks are not really the friendliest of the people. So gap in finance, the huge gap in credit, and gap in insurance.
Basically, they're having a really rough time. Where do you get all this data from? Who have you tied up with?
So we are currently using open source European Space Agency, ESA and NASA data. And we are in talks with ISRO for utilizing ISRO data for last 3 months that we had the geospatial policy rolled out in India, because they're just opening to the space ecosystem, especially the downstream sector. They also did not really understand the startup model. But thankfully, as of now, we do have agencies like InSpace, which are working with startups to really make the data available in the form and manner that a startup like me needs. So hoping that we can, start using ISRO data soon enough.
That's wonderful. Devleena, tell me, what does impact look like for your company?
Looking to make a change in the sustainable fishing ecosystem, which starts from the sea but ends at the consumer plate. At the sea, it's mostly about using the right gears, the right nets where the mesh size is not big enough, not catching juvenile fishes, not catching unseasonal fishes. And then while it lands on the shore, from that point onwards to the consumer plate, whenever we talk about sustainable fishing, it's not the onus of the fisherman, it's also the consumer, because unless until we don't stop creating unjust demand, a fisherman will not stop fishing pomfret. We try to kind of, educate the fishermen, not that they are not aware of it, but they're not incentivized for it. But understanding how the incentive system works, and then, understanding that this kind of the feedback can be given back to the policymakers is something that we have been engaged for a while. Second thing, the supply chain traceability is a must. There is a big fraud globally. You might think that you're eating a red snapper, but you're actually eating a tilapia because they mask it.
What?
So you really don't know which fish you're eating. So traceability is something that I think is inherently very important for us. As of now, we have not been very successful. Traceability kind of opens a lot of, gaps the current supply chain has.
Like opening a can of worms.
Yes. When the traceability is not there, you can do a ton of things which really won't be possible anymore. In fact, we have a technology, people don't like using it. It has a lot of resistance, culturally, economically. But I believe that's going to be a norm of the day soon enough. We have seen traceability being adopted in other food ecosystems largely after COVID. And now if we really, India in the fishery space, if they really have to increase their, percentage of fish export and the kind of export market, you need those certifications, and you cannot really fool people out there. How do you really drive that to the last fisherman who's not exploited, whose data is not, again, used and abused, but he gets an incentive for declaring his data? Otherwise, it's just somebody, driving a change without understanding, the cultural barriers.
So, Devleena, tell me, what is the hardest part of your work? Being a woman entrepreneur, running a social enterprise, there must have been all types of challenges.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, where do I start? But yeah, I would say, just keeping at it has been difficult because of various different reasons. One is fisheries, space, coastal ecosystem, oceans is not a topic that everybody understands. It's very difficult to really, find people who understands and who will be able to kind of either mentor you, guide you, open their purse and invest in you. But there is somehow the team that I have, and the work keeps me mentally stimulated. So no complaints there. But there have been difficulties where we are constantly fighting the system. There are multiple stakeholders you're having to talk to. You're educating the fishermen. You're having to really talk to policymakers. We have been involved in policy of fishing, on seaweed policy, on space policy. So it's keeping at it while being able to kind of seeing the process evolve at a pace that is much slower than really you would want it to be. And
Yet having to be in 10 places at the same time.
yeah, and the fact that all the stakeholders talk differently. The communication is different with the community, communication is different with the center, communication different with the state, communication different with the investor, with your demand ecosystem. It's a lot of talking.
So when are you going to run the company? That's how it is.
I love talking to my customers. It's just wonderful to see something happening in front, some fisherman coming and telling you, and then this app helped me. It's just wonderful. But then you suddenly realize, I have a tech team. I need to really,
work with them also.
Yeah, so it's crazy.
Devleena, tell me, Numer8 has grown at almost 400% in the last 5 years. And so what's your vision for it in the next 5 years, 10 years?
So essentially, in our last 5 years of work, we realized that fishing alone is not going to create the impact that we would like to see. If you're talking about sustainable blue economy, there are a couple of other complex overlapping things. So my vision for Numer8, and now that we are working with a larger group called Climate Crew, is essentially working with all stakeholders in the ecosystem. So my vision is being able to kind of fuel the growth of the marine ecosystem towards a blue economy while being completely sustainable.
What a lovely vision and dream. It's going to be possible. So, Devleena, it was indeed a pleasure to have you here, and I learned many new things actually about the blue economy and, just about sustainable fishing, which, reading it doesn't have the same kind of impact and, in memory as talking like this does. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Sustainable, the latest buzzword used a lot even when not needed, but certainly hard to think of when faced with that mouth-watering meal. We can't even imagine a day when we will not have our favorite fish available to us. Sustainability includes us too, as the final consumer. This entire marine ecosystem and blue economy exist because of us. So the next time you decide to indulge in seafood, be prudent about the fish you order and do go for that seaweed and sushi. Till next time on In Pursuit of Namaste.